Hello. In this class, we'll briefly look at the problem of inverse kinematics of a robot manipulator. What is inverse kinematics? It is what's the inverse kinematics problem? It is to find the joint variables given the end effector position and orientation, or a frame attached to the end effector. How do we go about that? Well, we can always develop a homogeneous transformation matrix relating the last frame and end effector attached frame to the base frame by our normal DH convention approach. For example, if I look at, suppose we have this 5 degrees of freedom robot arm, we fix the frames, we develop the link parameter tables, and then we work out H10, H21, and so on. Multiply all of them, you get your H50, 60, whatever. That is the frame attached, the position and orientation of the frame attached to the end effector with respect to the base frame. That's the forward kinematics problem, of course. Once you assign these values, then you can obtain this HTM in the some numbers. Okay. Now the problem is just the reverse of it. These numbers are given to you like this, and find the joint variables. These numbers, of course, are a rotation matrix, and these are the this is the position of the origin of the frame attached to the end effector. Well, how do we go about? Well, we know in the parametric form, you can always get H60 by our link parameter table, go on multiplying those matrices, and those expressions that you get for the corresponding to each of these elements, you can compare and you can equate and then get the 12 equations. Only 12 useful elements will be there. You can get 12 equations. But then that's not that simple. For example, if you take a Stanford 6 degrees of freedom Stanford arm, you will find this element 1, 1 will be of this complexity and magnitude and highly nonlinear trigonometric terms, and this equal to R11, for example, 612, and so on. Similar expressions made equal to the other terms will lead to 12 equations, but then many times they're not solvable. Well, one necessary condition for getting closed form solutions is at least 3 of these joint axes should be parallel to each other. 3 consecutive joint axes should be parallel, or 3 of them should intersect at a point. Well, the second condition many times is satisfied in the case of spherical wrists, where the last 3 joints axes intersect, wrist axis intersect at a point, and so you can get the closed form solutions. Otherwise, the comparison comparing these elements in parametric form to the numbers given and using those equations is one method. Other than that, it may not be possible in all the cases. Only in some simple cases it may be possible to get the joint variables by such comparison. Otherwise, some of the 2 techniques that normally adopted are one is inverse transform technique, and other is wrist decoupling. The wrist decoupling, when it's a spherical wrist, we decouple so that the center of the wrist becomes a function of the 3 joint position of the center of the wrist becomes a function of the joint variables, and so basically we divide that into 3 plus 3 problem instead of 6 unknown problem. So in any case, the solutions that you get, that is, what do you mean by solution? The 6 set of joint variables to bring the end effector to a required position and orientation. That may not be unique. There may be more sets of these joint variables that will bring the end effector to the same position and orientation. Also, when the degrees of freedom are more than 6, it becomes a redundant manipulator, and there may be infinite solutions. Now we'll look at how do we go about with the inverse transform method. Okay, suppose this is the 5 degrees of freedom manipulator. These are the frames attached and all that, and this is the homogeneous transformation matrix H50 given to us as numbers, let us say. This data is known to us. Well, the parametric form, as you said, for this only given only 1, 1 and 1, 4 terms as a sample. Well, other terms are also similar. By comparing these numbers with these expressions, you don't directly get any solutions of joint variables. So what we do is we multiply this and this with H10 inverse. This is numbers. Okay. H10 inverse. This is given numbers, and H10 inverse is this for the particular frame choices we made. This is H10 inverse, and the result of these two is this matrix, of which I gave only these two and these two terms and this. And on the other side, what you have is H51. It will have something like this. I again gave only these two terms. These are going to be useful to us. Other terms may not they're not useful. I didn't represent, just they're marked as into. Okay. So what do we do now? What is the effect of this? Well, if you look at this 3, 4 element and compare, this is equal to 0. So straight away this will give us an expression minus S1 dx plus C1 dy is equal to 0. Or S1 dx is C1 dy, or dy by dx is equal to r tan theta 1 is dy by dx, or we can also write it as theta 1 is a tan 2 dy comma dx. So straight away from this, by comparison of these two, we got the joint variable theta 1. Also, if theta 1 is known, these numbers should be known to us, and corresponding elements here are S5 and C5. Therefore, a tan 2 of this comma this minus of this comma this, are 8 and 2 minus of this comma minus of this will give us theta 5. Similarly, these two are CT234. 234 is theta 2 plus theta 3 plus theta 4. Cos of that we write it as C234. Similarly, S234. These two terms these are now available to us as numbers because already theta 1 is known to us. These are other R3, 1, 3, 2, 3 are given to us. So these are available as numbers, and they happen to be equivalent to cos and sine of this. So 8 and 2 of this comma this, or this comma minus this comma this is going to straight away give us theta 2, 3, 4. The same thing is written as two expressions here, theta 5 and 2, 3, 4. Actually, you don't have theta 1 and theta 5 are now known, and 2, 3, 4 is known to us, not individually, but as a sum of these three joint angles or variables. Okay, actually, what we do next is we do a similar inverse transform with H21 inverse. We multiply the previously obtained one. On the right hand side, in the parametric form, you have H52, whereas on this side, you will have elements mainly involving only theta 2 unknown. So we compare those elements, and from that you can also, once theta 2 is known, theta 3 also can be solved like we did before. So theta 2 and theta 3 can be known, and because we already know the sum of them, we can always know theta 4 also. Therefore, theta 1, theta 5, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, all the 5 joint variables are known, have been found out by this inverse transform method. And once this procedure is established for a particular type of chromosome, we can write a computer code, and for this configuration, at any position and orientation location, you can obtain the corresponding joint variables. Okay, now we look at the method of decoupling. The second method we talked about. This decoupling method, whenever the wrist center, when all the three rotary joints of the wrist happen to intersect at one point, then well, we can isolate this point, find out this point as DC. This is the end point. This is suppose given, this is given to us, and also the rotation matrix corresponding the H60 or R60 rotation matrix is known to us. And once this is known, you need to only come to this point. So along this, you need to travel by D6. That is, traveling along this is the vector. So R60, the frame attached is R60 with reference to base frame. So R60 into Z0 into D6 is going to give you this distance in the base frame. So you subtract that from this, you will arrive at this point. So your DC is DCX, DCY, DCZ. Well, but then that position is a function of only first three joints, theta 1, theta 2 joint variables, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3. Not it doesn't, this location does not depend upon theta 4, theta 5 or theta 6. So once this is, then by some geometric means you can find out theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 once this data is known, DC data is given. Once we do that, we can get the rotation matrix R63 from R's by multiplying R60, pre-multiplying R60 with R30 inverse. R30 is now known to us already because theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 are known by that geometric means. By H3, from H30, we can obtain the rotation part. R30 transpose or inverse of it and multiplied by R60 gives R63. That is the rotation matrix corresponding to these three. And this from our link parameter table, we can obtain this rotation matrix corresponding to the last three links. So that's in parametric form. So those elements you compare with these numbers available to you, and then by choice of proper elements, you'll be able to find out theta 4, theta 5, and theta 6. Okay, well, that is the procedure. We'll see how is it adapted to a particular robot arm. This is a 6 degrees of freedom robot arm, elbow arm with a spherical wrist. Here, the last three joints, they intersect at one point. This is the wrist center. The end point is this, and this is the wrist center, DC. So this we fix the frames, and this is the link parameter table. It so happens all the three frames are not here, but O2 and O3 we had to assign at this point. But then, of course, the intersection, that necessary condition of intersecting at one point at the wrist center still is valid and promises a solution, closed form solution. So this is the link parameter table, and this is the given position and orientation of the end effector for which we are required to find out the joint variables. Well, first thing we do is from this end point 19, 65, and 20 minus this rotation matrix multiplied by Z0, 0, 0, 1 into this distance. Okay, that will give us this. So these are the coordinates of the wrist center with respect to the base frame. Okay, well, we'll see how to get the first three joint variables just based upon this data geometrically. Well, it is like this. This is the wrist center. I removed the wrist part from here. The wrist center, and if you look from the plan view, this is the dx and this is the dy, or this is the dy. Straight away, dy by dx, that this rotation, originally what was like this, has moved to this point. This arm projection was like this, and it has moved to this because of theta 1 rotation. So here tan 2 of this by dy by dx will give you theta 1. Well, what about theta 2 and theta 3? This is theta 2, and this will be some other angle, which is 90 plus theta 3. Well, anyway, so from the properties of these triangles, this is the link length this much, and this is the other link length, and this is theta 2. So from this triangle, this square is equivalent to itself is equivalent to this square plus this square. This itself is xc plus square plus yc square. So this square is equal to this square plus this square minus 2 this into cos cos of this included angle. So based upon that, and also the other property of the triangle, this you find out, you take a tan 2 of this, you take the total value and then subtract this value, you will get your theta 2. Anyway, this exercise is done. First case, sine theta 3. In the first case, from this triangle, you get sine theta 3. If it is some E, we get cos theta 3 is plus or minus root of 1 minus a square. So already you can see some two possible solutions because of this two possibilities. Anyway, take case 1 and then a tan 2. Okay, case 1 with the plus, it will be a tan 2 plus. Okay, with that we proceed. Using that, we go to theta 2 again from that similar triangle, from the triangles. So that will give me for theta 2 for minus 48.39 degrees. Now theta 1 is from the plan view I have already talked about, is some a tan 2 of yc comma xc is 68 degrees. So we know theta 1, theta 2 and theta 3. So from that you can get the homogeneous transformation matrix H30 from the link parameter table, and this rotation matrix is your R30, and R63 you can obtain as R30 transpose multiplied by the given rotation matrix R60, which is here, and that product is this. Now this is available as numbers. This needs to be compared to the parametric form, which is this. In this parametric form, if you compare, we need to now compare this with the multiplied form. The after multiplication, these are the various terms that you get. For example, you can straight away see C5 is in the other one. The value to be compared is 0.74. So cos theta 5 is so much. So sin theta 5 will be root of plus or minus of root of 1 minus 0.74 square. So you got sin and cos. So a tan 2 of sin part and cos part will give you theta 5. If theta 5 is known, of course, there are two values, plus or minus in the a tan 2. Again, once theta 5 is known, these two terms correspond to sin 5 constant, and this is cos and sin, cos theta 4 and sin theta 4. If you take these two terms, so cos and sin are okay. This is sin and cos. So a tan 2 of the minus of this comma this will give you theta 4. Similarly, a tan 2 of minus of this comma this, whatever are the numbers, that will give you theta 6. Therefore, all the 6 joint variables first from the geometry for the first 3 joints, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, and of the rest later by comparison with the matrix elements, theta 4, theta 5, theta 6 are available. That is one set. Actually, you get another set because at theta 2, we have used only plus. If you take minus in the place of that theta 2 in the calculation of theta 2, that will lead to another set, which will be probably this. And again, here at theta 5, you got only plus. You used plus and got the solutions. If you used minus here, that will lead to another set of 2 more solutions. So you get 4 solutions. Not only that, when you made theta 1 is equal to a tan 2 of y comma x, that is one angle, maybe some 20 degrees. 110 is also plus 180, plus 180 is also possible. If theta 1 is 20, 200 degrees is also a possible solution. If you take that solution, you will find that you get another 4 sets of solutions. So for this particular case, you have 8 sets of possible solutions that will give you that original that will give you this particular homogeneous transformation matrix, that is this orientation and this position. 8 sets of solutions are there. So you have to choose one of them, of course. Not all may be feasible. Some of them by design, they can't, some of those angles that you suggested for these 8 sets, some they may not be able to reach those positions at all by constraints and design of the robot arm. So you have to choose one of them, and this is only corresponding to this position. Suppose the position is now different, orientation is also different. From this position, it has moved to some other point. Yet again, this corresponds to another homogeneous transformation matrix with a different set of numbers. So you have to repeat a similar exercise and obtain those values of the joint variables, 8 sets or whatever. Well, you can write a program valid for the first time, the way we proceeded. For that procedure, you can write a program and repeat the same procedure for any position and orientation, any H60 matrix given to you. Of course, the choice of the particular set of solutions, what needs to be chosen, is something you'll have to look at the actual robot arm, look at the solutions, and choose one of the sets in each case. So that will give us the complete inverse kinematics solutions for the whole travel of the robot arm end effector. This inverse kinematics is also very important when you deal with velocity kinematics also. Well, probably it needs to be mentioned that inverse kinematics is a real problem to be solved, because normally the end effector position, the way it has to trace, the points it has to trace, it will be the requirement of the user. So that is given. Joint variables is something you have to calculate and give it to the robot arm to go to as a function of the time. At each time, this is the joint set of joint variables it has to occupy, so that the end effector will be at that position at that point of time. So the real practical industrial problem is the inverse kinematics. That is, the end effector position and orientation is given. Similarly, this is the case with the velocity kinematics also. The end effector velocity is given to you, speed at which the trajectory is given to you, and you need to find out the corresponding velocity vector of the velocities of the joints for a given velocity vector of the end effector. Of course, again, as you go through that process, you need to find out the Jacobians at every point. Only then you can find out the velocity vector. But then to find out the Jacobian, you need to find out the corresponding the joint variables at that point of time. So at that point, at that position, you need to do the inverse kinematics procedure to find out the joint variables, which you substitute in the Jacobian, and then obtain the velocity vector, joint velocity vector. So that is the kind of importance this inverse kinematics problem of a robot manipulator has in the context of kinematics of a robot arm. Okay, so what we have covered in this topic is, we said the end effector position and orientation can be compared to the elements in a parametric form, and in some simple cases you can find, you can use those equations and straight away solve for the joint variables. Otherwise, you can use the inverse transform method, and in cases where you have a spherical wrist, you can also use very easily the decoupling method. So these are the common methods, and you should go through some textbooks where more examples are solved. Of course, most of the places you'll find that whatever we have covered are only done. Only thing is, it can be a relatively laborious exercise. As to have an appreciation of that kind of labor involved, you must go through some examples from some good textbooks. Okay, thank you.